Welcome to Discuss With Us podcast, where we are unpacking the world through a Christian lens. I am your host, Darcy Durkowski, along with my husband, Brian, and our intention is to pose topics, trending and otherwise, and unpack them with the help of some research, insights from our different backgrounds, and even some listener input in a way that is thought-provoking and entertaining. So get comfortable, grab your favorite beverage, and discuss with us.
Welcome back to another episode of Discuss With Us. I am Brian along with my wife Darcy on the ones and twos across the way. So, this week before we head out on spring break, we thought we'd jump on here and do another podcast before we head out. And as we mentioned last week, this is going to be about gardening.
Yeah, so we decided that we kind of have to stick with the things that we're actually discussing around our house to make this podcast sustainable.
It makes it slightly easier, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And, this one kind of goes along with Lent. Lent's the season of preparation, so there's a lot of preparation that goes into having a garden, so we thought it kind of made sense and went well together.
Yeah, and it's what we're doing around here. We're putting a lot of time in. Brian's been working on the soil. I've been doing some seed starting.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's what we're doing. And, it's one of those subjects, it's one of the topics that's actually really easily relatable with, you can draw a lot of parallels with your relationship with God and,
Absolutely.
and gardening. It's a very low-hanging fruit. No pun intended.
For sure, low-hanging fruit. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of the dirt work, and we've done gardens in the past, never to this magnitude. I decided we were going to just go all out and do a real big one.
Yeah, I questioned that a few times. I was like, "Are you sure we need that many rows?"
Yeah,
Are you
and now I'm not
we
sure
need
if we
that?"
have enough rows for all your seeds, so
Oh yeah, I
there's
guess
that.
that's true. So, in true form, we have a pretty decent story that goes along with how our soil prep started.
Yeah, you want to start that?
You can't make these things up. So, we live on 21 acres, and Brian's been going back and forth on where we're going to put this garden.
Just like 20 times.
Yeah, I think we'll put it over here for this reason, or no, maybe over here for this reason. So he finally lands on this spot next to our barn. We walked it, we looked at it, we talked about all the different angles. We're big planners over here.
Yeah, if y'all did the personality test, my personality is to find the perfect spot and just do it once. Darcy was a fan of just try it here. If we don't like it, we'll do it somewhere else. And I said, no, this is going to be the spot. This is going to be it. So,
I'm like, just go with it.
yeah, after so many trial runs of me playing it out in my head of where it would actually work best, I finally picked a spot. I was like, this is an area that'll be easily accessible.
Checked all the boxes for us.
Yeah, and so we got the tiller hooked up to the tractor and made like one pass, and I was like, what am I hitting? There's a bunch of rock down here.
Yeah, why is it jumping? Why is the tiller jumping?
So I got off, and lo and behold, there's like, I guess every extra brick that was used on our house back in the 60s when it was built. I don't know when this stuff was buried, but I found like,
it's a literal brickyard.
Yeah, I found at least 200 bricks.
Yeah.
So,
and it's either like they filled in a pool on our place, so it's either like those kind of bricks or the bricks from our house. I don't even know.
No, I think it's the one from the house, and that's a pretty good trek for them to put it there. So I have no idea why they got there. That none of y'all care about that. But the point was, I was trying to till up the yard, and then ended up having to get the box plate. It took a couple hours, and I had to dig all because by this point I was committed, so there was no turning back. So I had to pull all the bricks out. They're still scattered. If you see any of our Instagram posts or anything, you'll see all these bricks on the side, and you'll be wondering, what are those doing? Those are the ones that I literally chunked out while I was hand walking down the rows.
It kind of works though because it's like just heavy blocks for our kids to play with.
I am yes, there's that. And I'm also holding on to the hope that makes no sense, but somehow the clay from the bricks are going to be like crazy food for the plants. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's not true at all, but it works well in my head.
it's grasping a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah. I sometimes I think God has to get a kick out of that. Like,
It was funny because if y'all heard the conversations of how torn I was where to put
hmm
this thing, and when I finally was like, all right, I'm ready to go, let's do it, that happened. And that is just very fitting for how things go for me sometimes. And it was a reminder of just, I try to lay things out
yeah,
perfectly.
we
And
can plan our what is it? We can plan for the future, but God directs our steps.
yeah. And so I don't know if I was supposed to move it, but I pushed through and kept it in that spot. Um,
I guess we'll find out if like nothing lives.
yeah, no, then that will be the kicker. And the other thing is, which first off, don't know if we mentioned this already, but we're gonna have a guest today.
Yeah.
We're gonna do an interview with a local, somewhat local gardener for us,
hmm
Kyla. If y'all know her, stay tuned for that. That'll be coming up later on in the show. But um, we talk about dirt and stuff like that, and we have extremely sandy soil, which for some things should end up being pretty good. For other things, I'm having to mix in a lot of dirt and try to get it to the right soil content for certain plants, and that's going to be a slow, arduous process for us. We have a compost pile that's not ready to mix in quite yet. Hopefully, next season we'll have that. But so working in that dirt and trying to get everything ready, get all the weeds out, all the things. It really does while you're out there working kind of remind you of kind of our life's preparation and
hmm
how God has us here.
Yeah. When I was thinking about this and all the work that goes into it, and just thinking like I know that our end game, right now we're having to mix in a lot of dirt and just trying to get it right. But um, the end game is that we have a compost pile that we're working on, but that takes time, and we didn't start it. We
Yeah.
didn't quite have the forethought to have it ready by now, but hopefully by maybe our fall garden or something, it'll be ready if we're even doing it right.
Yeah,
We'll
we may
see.
have given up by then.
I don't know. But the idea is to have this compost pile. And so, all week we've been, really the last couple of weeks, we've been working on this garden, knowing this episode was coming up. And so it's been good for me because I've been trying to kind of listen to what God would have me talk about in regards to the garden and our faith. And one of the things that occurred to me that I thought was interesting is so the compost, it takes time.
Long
And
time.
yeah, and so you know the the easy parallel here is that we should be planting in good soil, right? Which
Hmm.
for our faith, means that we're preparing, we're doing the things to make our lives good soil, I guess, for what God would have us bear fruit in.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about like what is the compost of our life, and of our faith. So like, what is
Ew.
God? I know it's kind of funny, but follow me.
All
What
right.
has God used in our life that is now compost for our soil and for our faith? Does that make sense?
It's a little bit of a stretch, but I can follow you there. Keep going. All right.
I thought it made perfect sense to me. But I was just thinking about like the different things that happen in our lives that we don't recognize at the time. Like we may question God, like why is that? Why is this happening? Or
Oh, okay. Yeah.
why has my life taken this turn? Or why did this bad thing happen to
Yeah.
me?
Where we can't see the whole
Yeah,
picture.
exactly. We can't see the whole picture, but God's turning it into compost for our faith.
That's true. Yeah. That's a really okay. Now it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I probably
Sometimes when
could have.
those negatives happen, we don't know why, and then later we're prepared for
Yeah,
another event, and it kind
yeah,
of takes time to build on each other and get all those ingredients mixing in the right way, and kind of turns you into who you need to
right,
be.
right. But we can. lose sight of that, or not, or just not even have the perspective to realize that some of those things, if we're not looking back, and we're not looking for how God moves and moved in our life in the past,
Hmm.
then we can miss it. And I think it's good for us to reflect, because it can help us in the future if we're going through something similar or something totally different, but just something that we don't understand,
Yeah,
to have looked back and seen what God did in our life, to get us, through some of the things that we go through.
that's you as the seed starter of the garden for sure. Because I had a different perspective on it. Um, for me, working those rows, it always it's half. Well, it is pretty applicable. I think it's. I know it's in Matthew 13. I think is when they talk about the seeds on the different soils,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're on the rocky ground, the birds get it. Um, and for me, I was thinking about that a lot while I was building our rows and getting the weeds out. And if you're on hard ground, you're not going to have a sustainable plant. And then the second part of the parable is if you're on basically a weed infested ground,
Mm-hmm.
not prepping the soil, the weeds are going to choke out your plant and you're
Yeah.
not going to have a yield. And it's only on that good, fertile soil that you'll have a plentiful harvest.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, you do all this prep work for, you probably save yourself like $20, I don't know, from the grocery
If
store.
that, I don't know.
Yeah, but the whole point, you do all this prep work before you even put anything in the ground. And when I was thinking about that, for me, that was kind of where it's a real life uh phenomenon you can stare at of like
Mm-hmm.
why church is important. Like
Right.
if you're going to church, doing Bible studies, all the extra things we do, that's preparation for our soul's soil, how
Yeah.
we're going to be connected to God. And that's what I was thinking about while I was building the rows.
Yeah, and you say church, but also, and church is definitely a big one, but also prayer,
Yes, that all the things.
communion, whether that's, and when I say communion, I mean just like community with other Christians, and so yeah, Bible studies, things like that. All of those things feed into that. I was thinking about that, also as I did the seed starting, which is the first time I've used this greenhouse,
Yeah, that
and
we've had forever since we got married, I
I know,
think.
yeah.
Wasn't that our wedding registry gift?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was. And so it's the first time I've used it, and I was shocked. Like, you read the back of some of the seed packages, and it'll tell you, like, oh, give it 1 to 2 weeks or whatever, um, for the seeds to sprout. You can read all kinds of things online, but the greenhouse had these things popping up in less than 3 days,
Yeah, that was
and
crazy. I didn't expect that.
yeah, and then just significant growth day after day. And that made me think and wonder, what is the greenhouse of our faith? And I think the church would be the greenhouse of our
Ah,
faith,
okay, yeah, that's
you
even
know?
one upped me there.
It's not one up.
Just I hear what you say and let me just make it better. Okay.
We're a good team.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's actually a really good point. And I was shocked too. Like you planted all those seeds and
Hmm.
I didn't even know how many of them were going to take or not.
Yeah, no,
And
me
I
either.
mean, it was literally half a day. You didn't even have to wait a whole day. It's kind
Right.
of crazy. And you're right. When you think about going to church, it like accelerates all the
Yes.
other things that we're talking about,
Yes.
that go outside of it. That and all of that is to help us have a good root system in God, be able to
Hmm.
look for the future and just have a much stronger faith and therefore have a stronger harvest, which is,
Yeah.
spreading the word, doing all the things that His will wants us to do while we're here.
Right. And, the things that a greenhouse does, it blocks the wind,
Yeah.
for one, keeps the humidity and temperature, you know, where it should be. And so for the church, it's not even just, it, it is the church, being there, but it's also just the absence of distraction, from our everyday life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe not for us
Yeah, I was
because
about to say, are you
we've got
sure about
three
that
little
for us?
distractions. But the point is that you go in there focused on this is what I'm here for. Whereas, every other day of the week,
Well, we talk about it all the
mhm,
time where we try to dedicate time to
yeah,
God, and most people either in the morning or the evening.
yeah,
And everyone tries to do that, and some people are better than others, but that is the 1 day a week, 1 hour a week that most people are pretty locked in.
right. And then beyond church, like I said, it can also be prayer, our conversations with Him, hopefully listening for what He would say back to us and not all just one directional.
For
But
some of
that's
us,
the
yeah.
hard part, right?
Exactly.
That's the really hard part.
Especially if you get an answer you didn't want.
Yes, yes, definitely. But all of that is the greenhouse of our faith, and um, you know, also being in tune with that. Hopefully, we can look back, tying this all together,
Here we go.
and see see what God used for compost in our life.
Some people are listening to this and like, oh man, I just wanted some gardening trip tips, and we're going real deep here. But
That's
it's
okay.
true.
That's okay. The other thing, before we move on to actual garden tips that I was thinking of is, um, you know, like we said, there's so many distractions out there, and so something about just the act of gardening, which in itself, just the manual labor and stuff like that, um, it is very grounding. Again, no pun intended,
It
but it is
is.
very grounding, and there is a miracle to it, you know, to
No, like
what's
that
happening.
greenhouse. I
Yeah.
completely agree. It didn't even take a whole day, and you could see the growth.
Yes. And just being that, I guess, in touch with God's creation, it just is really easy to, um, let your mind wander to God and to your faith and to, wherever you're at in your walk with Him. Um, More so than some of the other tasks that, or chores that we end up doing around here.
Yeah.
But I was, um, just kind of also a final thought. There was a podcast I listened to one time, and I don't even remember which one it was, but there was a nun giving a talk on there, and she was talking about you know, how to stay constant in prayer. And that has always been a difficult concept for me to wrap my head
Uh
around
huh.
because there's just always so much
Yeah.
else going on, life, and like we said, all these distractions. And she talked a lot about not even necessarily just staying in constant conversation with God, although that's great too, but even in the day to day tasks that we do, laundry, dishes, blah. But,
Do we do
sh-
those every day?
well, we should. I know we do some kind of laundry every day in this house. But, anyways, she was talking about how we can give those tasks to God and how we will then be able to do them with a much more joyful heart than if we didn't.
That's
And
true.
and how that kind of mindfulness is also a version of, prayer and praise to God, giving those tasks to Him. So we can do that in the garden
That's
as
some
well.
like expert level prayer though. I am not there for sure.
But it can be just as simple as offering it up and then just leaving it at that. You don't have
Yeah.
to sit there and pray the whole
Yeah, it
time that
gives
you're
you a
doing it.
different mindset to doing those
Exactly.
chores. I think that's
Exactly.
actually a pretty cool thing to maybe try.
I know, and that I have tried it since then. I don't always do it. It doesn't always occur to me. But
Has it worked?
yeah, no, she just says, like before you're getting ready, especially maybe if you're really procrastinating one that you don't want to do, like for me,
Amen.
laundry and dishes. Um, sitting in front of the sink there, just say, just literally say out loud or in your head, whatever, that God, I'm going to dedicate this this chore um, and this time to you. Thank you for the opportunity to do it. It kind of gives you that grateful
Yeah.
sort of perspective, like I get to do dishes, some people don't. I get to fold clothes, some people don't. So anyway,
True, true, true. All right. So before we bring Kyla on the line, just a couple things I wanted to say real quick. Kind of going back to what you were talking about. If look, if you don't have the space, time, whatever to grow garden, completely understand. You can though. We're taking on a large one. I've done where you just do like a tomato plant in a pot,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just do that to get some cherry tomatoes, which are super easy.
Yeah.
And kind of to your point of like witnessing the miracle, it is kind of cool to just grow that. Or if
Mm-hmm.
nothing else, it gives you like an appreciation a little bit when you go to
Yeah.
HEB or wherever you get your food from. Um, of just like how much work goes into getting it, because I
Yeah.
mean we're growing, we're trying a bunch of different things. I don't know what's going to take in all our dirt. This is new dirt for us
Yeah.
to be
Trial
working
and
with.
error
So
this
yeah,
year.
we're going to try a whole bunch of stuff, see what we get. It's not like we're not going to be buying produce from the store.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if nothing else, even if we're not getting all the yields we want on certain things, it's going to be cool to go through it, and it does give me at least different appreciation when I'm at the store.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
But without further ado, let's call Kyla and see if we can get her on the line.
Yeah. Okay. Let's give her a call.
Hello.
Hey, Kyla, it's Brian and Darcy. How's it going?
Hi, it's good. How are y'all?
We're doing well. We're doing well.
All right. So we wanted you to join us so you can tell us a little bit about your gardening, all the other things you have going on. But for those that don't know you, as well as we do, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little of the things that you have going on, which is quite a bit.
Yeah, my name is Kyla, and I am a wannabe homesteader. I have three kids, five, three, and one. So I'm in the same boat as y'all as we don't
Yes.
sleep.
Right.
And we live on the property that my husband grew up on. So we live next to my in-laws, and they had a dairy for years. And so there's tons of farm animals and barns and farm equipments, which is my dream.
Yeah, like your
And
playground.
yes, there's so many opportunities, and I'm very blessed. My father-in-law is an enabler. So anytime I have an idea, he's like, "Yes, let's do it. The bigger the better." So we recently got a dairy cow and we milked her for a little bit, and then right now she's getting bred.
Those
And
videos were gold, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, y'all need to
what?
shout out your YouTube there because
And Reese. Reese is the unsung hero of those videos.
Yeah, that was a good monologue, right? So we are Life with the Gables on YouTube. We haven't made a video in a few months, but
there's
we'll get
plenty
back
there
to
to
that.
watch and rewatch until you have something else.
It's it's pretty much all about our adventures with this cow, Sally Unicorn. We
That's the
actually
name. I was asking Brian the other day. I said, "What's Kyla's cow's name again?"
Sally Unicorn, named by the 3-year-old.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, our neighbors had her, and I had been asking for quite a while. I work with her, and I asked her, pretty often if she ever wanted to sell, and it
Mhm.
actually was promised to someone else. And then she asked me one day, she was like, "Do you still want the dairy cow?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And so after I said yes, I came home and I asked Reese, and then I asked my father-in-law, and he was the one who was like, "Yes, let's do this." So, because I did need their help since
Yeah.
they had a dairy for years, and I know nothing about
Except for all the
any of that kind of
benefits.
stuff. I know that raw milk is so delicious and it's so healthy. Well, not for me, I'm lactose intolerant, but my kids love raw milk. And it's so much better for you than the stuff at the store. So, and I wanted it for the learning opportunity too. I think it's important that
Yes.
kids know where their food comes from and that they know that they can take care of themselves if, you know,
Mhm.
No, and I
HEB
thought
goes
that was
under.
cool. Your kids seem to have fun doing all these things with you.
Yeah.
Correct. They are feral. And so we try to be outside as much as possible, and they're always in the dirt, they're always barefoot, they're always into something, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
I want them to grow up that way and to just be outside.
Yeah.
And I don't think that a lot of people have that opportunity. I certainly didn't grow. I mean, I grew up in, quote, the country, but not where we are now with all of this stuff.
And you wore shoes, I think.
Once I got to, 13-ish and I cared a little, I did wear shoes, yes. So yeah, we also have tons of chickens. We have guineas. And we actually went through a little thing where we tried to incubate some and they did not hatch. So I went and bought some chicks. And instead of sticking with the normal amount, I got 20 because why not?
Well, you just
Um,
never know what's going to happen out there.
well, correct. And with my kids, as much as they play with them, I just know that I need to get a lot of them to make
Yeah.
sure that, if something were to happen,
If you love one too much,
Yeah.
right. And
of
that
mice
did
and men on
happen.
them.
Yeah, and our sweet little 1-year-old, that did happen. She loved it a lot, and then it left us.
Yeah.
So we have lost 3 due to various accidents that we don't need to go into because they were somewhat traumatizing
Yeah.
for all involved. But I would definitely recommend chicks for everyone. Right now, they're in our laundry room. So, well, we actually got 2 batches. We have 10 in our laundry room with the heat lamp, and then we have 10 in our coop with the heat lamp.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all going to be laying hens. And then the ones, if we have too many roosters, our plan is to, um, what's that word? Harvest them.
There you go.
There's a good word.
And
Yes.
so, yes. And so we are going to that as well as some of the older roosters that are running around now. We're going to go ahead and have a big day because we did that every
You
year
should do a
growing up.
video of that because I have been to those at your parents' house and it is a
There's
spectacle.
I have such fond memories, and I know that's like weird, and some people might not appreciate it, but I loved it just because
Mm-hmm.
it was always a full day in the summer. The whole family would come over. Somebody would go get kolaches and pigs in the blankets, and then you just
All day.
go through, yeah, and then you have chicken to eat for the next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to do that. Reese is not on board. He does not want anything to do with
Yeah,
this
but you really
day.
just need his dad, right?
I only need Poppy and Gigi.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it, and the kids are going to love it. And Reese is going to be thankful whenever I make some chicken tenders.
Yes, exactly. That's where his appreciation will come in. And you need lots
Yes,
going on there because at the house because you're homeschooling right now, correct?
correct. So we decided, and I say homeschooling loosely because the oldest is 5.
Yeah, I
So,
guess that's true. But still.
but I do have a curriculum that I follow with both him and our 3-year-old because she wants to learn.
Mm,
And it's a lot easier with 2 of them. I would say
yeah.
I absolutely love it. So I still work part-time, and we are very fortunate to have childcare for those 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
But the other 3 days we do our school curriculum, and it's so much fun. I it's really hard some days just
Right.
because the 5-year-old will just throw himself off of the chair because he's so tired and can't do anything anymore on like page 2.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much fun, and you get to see their bond. Like the 2 siblings are just so much closer now that they're together, and they
Yeah.
don't fight nearly as much as they did whenever they were separated all day in their school and their daycare.
Mm,
So it's pretty
Interesting.
yeah,
amazing.
that
And
is.
they've started playing together on their own more. Like they don't need me. I'm just taking care of the 1-year-old pretty much, and she's self-sufficient because she's third born. So
Right.
Yep, those are the best.
it's just a really wonderful thing, and I'm so thankful that we decided to do it, and I recommend it for anybody who is able to if it fits with your work schedule. It's not as scary as you think. And I know there's not as much of a stigma around it now as there was, say, when we were growing up
Mm-hmm.
in the 90s and 2000s. A
Yeah, I
lot of
agree with
people
that.
are doing it. Homeschooling is actually the quickest form of school that's growing right now. I didn't word that correctly, but homeschool is growing faster
Right.
than the public school numbers. Everybody's pulling out and
Yeah.
they're kind of doing it their own way, which in 20 years we'll see if it was beneficial or not.
Well,
If
and
we'll
yours
have
is
a bunch
cool
of
because you're like farm schooling.
Yeah, that too.
Yes.
An added
Yes, we're
aspect.
unschooling at the farm. You have morning work at the school desk, and then we go outside and we play and we do chores and um, chase chickens, honestly.
No, I think
So,
that's really cool, and I'm seeing. I've just watched Lad and now Hattie over the years. Like they're starting to help and do all that stuff, which is good because it's
it's
almost
so great.
it's garden season is upon us, and there's plenty to do, plenty of prep, and plenty of things to do and upkeep with the garden.
Yes, and I'm so thankful that they love it because I would be really disappointed if they had no interest in it. And they may not whenever they're teenagers, but for now, I'm embracing the fact, even though it's very difficult whenever you have extra hands helping you and you could do it by yourself a whole lot quicker,
Right?
it's really sweet seeing them do it together and figure it out and just be excited when something happens, when you
Yeah.
produce something.
And you've had a garden going for a few years now. So have you found that like Lad seeing where the food is coming from, is he like even slightly more interested in vegetables? Because that's what I'm hoping for this year.
So that's what they say. Um, they say let your kids help you cook and they'll eat it. And
Mm,
I've tried that. And so Lad he's 5, so he puts it together a little more, I think.
mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it does help a little bit. He's excited. Like if we grow a cucumber, he's like, oh, we're gonna have cucumber on our salad. He's more
Mm-hmm.
into it. Um, but also it has to do with personality.
Yeah.
Firstborn will kind of do things a little easier. Those second ones, they're little firecrackers. So
Yeah, I agree
even
with
if
that.
they grow the vegetable, they're not going to touch it.
Yeah, I don't know the last vegetable that Clyde ate. I can't. I honestly can't even think of
I
it. He doesn't even like fruit. It's tough out there with him. Um,
it's so hard. So I wish that was true, and for some kids it might be. But we just do it. Hattie thinks that the plants are pretty, so that's what we go for.
yeah, no, that's good too. So with gardening, and like I said, you've been gardening for a few years, and you also kind of grew up around it. I think your Nana had a garden, correct?
Yes, we've always had a garden for as long as I can remember for my entire life. So, my grandparents had a huge garden, and we would always help with that every year. We didn't really want to. I didn't like it necessarily as a child because it was a chore, and it's hot, and you don't want to go out in the
Right.
middle of the day and chop weeds. But we did, and it's good for kids to work, and so I'm thankful that they made us do that, because I guess we take it for granted not everybody has that opportunity.
Right.
And so whenever we bought our house and we moved here, it was never just a question of if we're going to have a garden or not. It was where are we going to put our garden and when are we going to do it.
Right.
So we started the first year we did 2 containers, and then after that the next year, just because Reese was like, are you going to do this for real? He didn't believe me. um and then the next year he was like, okay, like he got into it. And
Yeah.
so we put one in the ground, and so for the past few years we've had the container gardens and then the big garden in the ground. And then during the winter, we just use the containers. We don't do a really big winter garden
Okay.
necessarily in the ground.
No, that's
So,
already good feedback. So with that, let's launch into kind of our main bread and butter here that we wanted to talk with you about, which is share some of your gardening tips and hacks that you've learned over the past few years with your garden, or something even that your nana taught you that you still use.
so a lot of people are very methodical when it comes to their gardening. I know a lot of people like draw graphs and they have plant partners and everything.
Hmm.
I would say just kind of ignore that if you're just getting started.
Right.
I I have never started with a plan. My Nana never started with a plan. There was never any diagrams. The only hard and fast rule that we follow is you don't plant something in the same spot that you did last year.
Hmm.
So even whenever you till the ground, if you add more fertilizer, you add soil, whatever you do, it's still the nutrients are not going to be in that row the same way they were before
Right.
that that last season. So if you plant tomatoes over to the right of your garden, the next year you want to go to the left and you want to plant something else where your tomatoes were last year because each plant has its own things that it's going to suck from the soil.
Right.
So that's really the only rule that I follow.
Okay.
Our process of getting the garden ready is we go to the barn and we get a big tub of like compost just from the cattle and stuff. And we'll go throw it in the ground and then Reese will till it up. We'll do that again and he'll till it about 3 times. And then we pull the weeds and that's how then we just start. We don't do rows or like we don't create rows. I know some
Mm.
people will chop up and make a heap kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that the first year, but after that we never really did. The reason people do that is because whenever you water,
Mm-hmm.
the water will sometimes it'll drain down better if there's a mound.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, my garden doesn't get watered all that much, so I don't have to worry about any any collecting water.
Right.
um, so yeah, it's basically just a flat rectangle of dirt.
Okay.
And then we will kind of draw lines in the dirt and just start planting. So I start seeds ahead of time before
Mm-hmm.
I put plants into the ground. And what I do, this is a little trick, is whenever it's about to be seed starting times, we have, we have a lot of chickens. So we have eggs all every morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'll save the eggshell. So usually whenever you crack an egg and you have two halves. I'll
Mm-hmm.
save those halves and then I'll fill up several 18 packs of 18 pack cartons.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll put dirt in all of the shells. And then we put the seeds in the eggshells. And that's our little seed container that we start in.
I like
And
that.
so that way so whenever you start seeds at home, sometimes whenever you're pulling the plant out of your little plastic container, they're not as root bound as they
Mm-hmm.
are as the ones you buy from the store. And so it can kind of mess them up and it can kill them. So we just plant the eggshell directly into the ground.
No,
And
I
so
like
that
that.
way
That's
it
a
gets
good
the
tip.
calcium. Sometimes you can crack the egg a little bit, but it gets the calcium. And so it's just like an extra fertilizer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we do to start our seeds. Um, let's see, another little thing. Oh, and we always plant pretty much the same thing. We are big on yellow squash and zucchini, and
Mm-hmm.
those are super easy to grow. If you're just starting off, anybody can grow any
It's
kind of
hard to
squash.
screw those up.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then we do tomatoes, and my tomatoes are not always successful from a seed. So I'll start those early so that way if the seeds die, I just go to the store and buy the plants and then
Yeah.
plant those in the ground.
Have you ever
Um,
had trouble with like a disease or something getting your tomatoes? Is there anything you do to prevent that or anything you watch for?
So our tomatoes, no, not necessarily. We have really bad squash bugs over where
Mm.
we live. And so what I found out accidentally last year is I always plant the big tall sunflowers in my garden.
Mm-hmm.
And the so last year it just so happened that it was the squash and then it was the sunflowers right next to it. All of the squash bugs left the squash alone and they were just eating all of the sunflower's leaves. So the
Yeah.
leaves were
Interesting.
covered in bugs and all of our squash were fine. And we had never done that before because like I said, I don't plant anything.
Yeah, so much
Um,
is trial and error, but that it makes
yes.
sense. Did your sunflowers survive?
No, they were beautiful. They're
So it
always
just got
so
the
tall.
leaves.
They're 8, 10 feet tall. Yeah, and it's just the leaves, and they didn't even eat the leaves. They just lived on there
Hmm.
because I don't use any herbicides, pesticides, any sprays or anything.
Right.
Ours is just straight. I mean, and it's
El
not going to be
natural.
yes, and it's not going to be as aesthetically pleasing that way. Like you're gonna have weeds and you're gonna have like just a bunch of stuff in there. But you just kind of have to accept that because
Mm-hmm.
even if you do use chemicals, you're going to have weeds. It's just a fact of gardening.
Right. No,
So yeah,
that's a good tip too. Sunflowers, we may have to kind of add that to our list.
yes, and it was just totally by accident, and I will remember that for forever
Mm-hmm.
because I just remember one day I just looked and it was covered in squash bugs, and then you can take off the leaf and kill those little boogers, but it was just incredible.
Yeah.
I was so proud of myself.
No, that's good. Okay.
But then too, with the sunflowers, you grow them and then you chop off. whenever they die, you get the sunflower head, and then you can let them dry and you save the seeds. Then you can put them in your bird feeder, you can replant or anything. So sunflowers are also super easy to grow.
Hmm. Okay.
Very difficult to pull out of the earth. Like the roots are so long and the stalks are probably like, I don't know, 2 inches in diameter. But yeah, you
Do,
have to do them though because they're so pretty.
do y'all do a lot of canning or freeze drying anything, or do you just eat it all fresh?
We do canning. We've never done freeze drying. I would love to. But yeah, I do pickles. My parents this year did, they canned cauliflower, and it was the
Hmm.
best thing I've ever tasted. It was just in a pickle brine, and it was super crunchy, and it was so good. But you can can anything, you can pickle anything, and it's going to be good. But yeah, we'll do pickled carrots are good, pickled okra, obviously pickles. And then I make a relish out of zucchini. So you just
Hmm.
take a few zucchini and then some peppers, you grate them up, and then you just do, it's a simple recipe to make it into a relish. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
use that. We'll can our tomatoes whole after we'll blanch them and then peel them, pull the skin
Mm-hmm.
off. And then we'll can those to use throughout the year for marinara or, crock pot meals, something like that.
Okay. We took
Is
we took you off your path of tips. Anything? Did we cover
Oh,
everything or anything else?
oh, yes. And something else that I do that I've seen on some seed packets, if you read the back, and some don't say it. But I learned this one year and I've always done it since is around here, we need a hardy plant because, as I mentioned, the watering, I try to
Mm.
do it regularly, but it just doesn't always happen. And then there's always kids running through, there's always dogs running through, there's always chickens. We need a strong plant. So whenever I'm starting seeds, I will do about two or three and then let them all grow in one little section, let them
Mm-hmm.
all grow. And then whenever they get big, I'll cull the two smallest ones
Mm-hmm.
so that you have a big strong one that's left.
Right.
And that's the one that we plant. So some people might think that's wasteful, but for me it works better
No, if
and it's
in the
more,
long run should lead to hopefully more
yes.
abundant plant. Yeah, I'm
So that's
curious to
what the
see how my
picking.
seed starting goes this year. I haven't started. Well, we started some from seeds at our past garden, but I haven't done as much
not
as
like
I'm doing
this.
this
If you
year.
want to
So,
if you want to speed it up, if you're like running behind, which you still have plenty of time, but if you do want to speed it up, you can soak your seeds in water
mm-hmm.
and then that will speed up germination.
Okay. Yeah, I have like a little. I say mini greenhouse, and there I know there's really tiny ones. This one I guess is like a medium sized mobile portable kind of greenhouse, and it's actually working
Oh, okay.
really well. I've been
Oh, I
shocked at
want one.
how quickly Amazon. I
Oh
might
my
have to
gosh,
share
Amazon.
that in the notes or something of
Yeah.
this. But yeah, it was we actually had it on our wedding registry and then it sat for like 5 years and I pulled it out this
Blocked
year.
a hole in the fence for a while. It had its purpose.
Yeah, and then I set it out to be taken to the dump and then we decided to do a garden and luckily we're slow about taking things to the dump around here, I guess. So we still
I
had
get
it.
it. See, it was meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. So no, that's going really well. I'll have to send you some pictures of just less than a week, and they're already probably 4 inches tall or more.
Out where y'all are at, do you have more of a sandy soil or a clay?
We have more of a sandy soil than y'all do in Washington County.
Mm.
It's more of black dirt, but
Hmm.
there's not nearly the amount of clay.
So you just
But
have
it
good
works.
dirt.
Yeah, good
We
dirt's
have
what that
great
sounds
dirt
like.
and we add a lot of special nutrients from the barn.
Mm.
Years and years of
Special
compost.
nutrients.
Yes, people pay big bucks for the stuff that we add to
Yeah.
our dirt. So, yeah, and then add the chicken stuff on top. It's just ideal. Also, if you throw your fireplace ashes in the ground before you till it up, that also helps.
Yes.
Yeah. We need to save some of that, or I've been dumping it in the wrong place. Now that we have a designated garden place, I need to take that out there and
Yes.
start mixing it in.
Is there anything that you have grown before that you were like, never again? I will not go through with that.
So we tried watermelon one year
Watermelon can
and
get crazy.
it took over the entire place. I did not feel safe for Lad to go into the garden because
Yeah.
I was like, surely there's going to be snakes in
It's
there.
like Jack
Right.
and
It
the Beanstalk.
it was awful, and we grew like two little measly watermelons the size of like a grapefruit. So it was not, it didn't work out. It ruined everything because it just took over and it was a disaster. So if we were to ever do that again, I would do it in one of the raised beds just by itself.
Yeah, you need like your
Probably
own watermelon patch.
Mm-hmm.
yes, like two seeds in the raised bed, and we're like, I'm good.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
but
I'm
I
glad you
don't
said
know
that
if
because
we
it
do
makes me feel better because we did that one time. We did watermelon and cantaloupe and we put it on the edge row like we're supposed to because we were trying to get it to grow out away from everything else. But like you said, it looked perfectly healthy. It was all over the place, but there were hardly any watermelons.
Yes. So we actually, my Nana, I remember they tried to grow cantaloupe for years and years and years. And they live like kind of in the middle of
Yeah.
like where y'all are and where we are. And they could grow anything. And they just could not grow cantaloupes. There was maybe two or three the whole time, and they
Hmm.
had their soil tested. You can take a sample of your soil and send it off.
Mm-hmm.
I know Texas A&M does something like that, and
Yes.
the pH of the soil was wrong, and they give you tips on how to make it better, but just for cantaloupe, they weren't going to
Yeah.
mess with everything else that was going well.
Right.
Um, so I think it's just our area. We're just not melon people.
Guess not. Um, are you trying anything new this year?
This year. So this year I'm starting tomatoes from seeds. I don't generally do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
tried it once before and it wasn't successful. So I'm doing that. But like I said, I'm doing it early enough to where I do have low hopes that once they get transferred into the ground,
Mm-hmm.
like they there's a good chance they're going to die. So I might end up buying plants. Um, there's a there's a farmer's tale that if it thunders in January, it's going to freeze in April, and we had that this year. It was a very rainy January,
Mm.
so I don't really know when I'm going to transfer all my seeds out because I'm nervous that there will be one more cold snap around Easter. So that's kind of a big thing this year too, is nobody knows when to move their seeds. I would like to say that I touched on this earlier. Don't be intimidated by, the Pinterest gardens and what you
Mm-hmm.
see on Instagram, because gardening is not just pretty and perfect. There's, like I said, there's going to be weeds all over the place, and the sooner that you accept that, the better,
Yeah.
because the gardens will grow just fine with or without weeds. You may have a few more snakes if you have weeds, but just wear shoes.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't get hung up on that, and don't be intimidated to just start, because people have been doing this for thousands of years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very satisfying whenever you grow your own food. It just
Yes.
personally,
Definitely.
I love it,
Yeah. I
and it
think
tastes better.
something about like the manual labor that goes into it that I always say is like so good for our psyche.
Yes,
Between
it's
that
grounding.
and just it's part of what we're talking about with this podcast is I think something like that can really kind of connect you to God's creation too and kind of the miracle that it all is because it is pretty crazy
Exactly.
to see that you can grow something like that and then live off of it.
God gave us the seeds, you
Yes.
know.
Yes. Okay, so you're our first guest, Kyla. So we're so
Woo!
appreciative that you
Number one.
yeah, numero uno.
The first thing I've ever won.
No, and you were the obvious choice. But so we wanted to I think what we're going to try to do when we have a guest on here is have some kind of common question that we round out with. And so I wanted to ask you, what has been a game changer for you in growing your faith?
Okay, so this one, I think y'all might really be able to relate to this. For me, it was having kids,
Mm,
specifically three kids, because, kid one and kid two, I still had a sense of control. And it was just kind of like I needed to be in control. I can
yes.
handle everything. And then once kid three came, it was just a very humbling. I just kind of remember it hit me one day of I'm not in control, and it's okay.
The
Mhm.
You know,
Instagram reels of 3 kids plus are on point.
Yes.
yes, it's just so freeing. I was just like a soldier with our schedules on the first 2 kids, and it was so hard.
Mhm.
And since having 3 kids, even Reese and I's marriage is better because we're so much more relaxed because we realize we're outnumbered,
Mhm.
and that's okay. It's just it's fine. God gave us 3 kids. He knew we needed 3 kids.
Right.
And I am praying so much more now because before I had a regimented morning schedule of I
Mhm.
would, wake up, have my prayer time. Now, my kids don't necessarily like to sleep, so they're up as soon as the sun even thinks about coming up.
Mhm.
And so I don't get that time, and so I find myself having more of a conversation with God throughout the day as
Mhm.
opposed to my one sit down prayer time before.
Yeah.
And I'm always praying mostly for patience, but also just for
Yes.
guidance and wisdom and health. And I just feel like it's made me grow as a person in
Mhm.
general, but my faith is a lot better for it. And I feel
Yeah.
like I'm more of a friend with Jesus, and I'm always, talking to God or talking to, the saints. A lot of I know all the mother saints out there because I've just had to fall back on them so much because like you can't do it on your own, and
Yeah.
there's so much stuff out of your hands, and you just kind of have to accept it. So
Yes.
that 3 kids.
Yeah. No, I get it because I always joke and tell Brian I don't remember the last mass that I was able to like, or I guess the last homily that I was able to get something from because I don't remember any of them. As soon as I walk out the doors of the church, I have no idea what was just said in the homily. But nevertheless, going there, being there, receiving the Eucharist, all of that stuff. I don't know. It does make you having the kids and being so distracted by them. I guess one, I think it's definitely God's work for us, but two, you almost have to be just more intentionally mindful in all of the mundane tasks that you're doing,
Yes,
and
I
give it to God.
often. Right. And I think of Saint Therese, she always has said, thank God during the mundane, like kind of what you just said. So
Hmm.
that's kind of playing in my mind as I'm picking up toys and like taking
Yes.
underwear out of pants for the fourth time and just kind of just trying to be a good wife and a good homemaker and
Hmm.
just kind of, raise up our children to be respectful and calm and normal and love Jesus. And it's so hard.
It is
But
so
yes,
hard. No,
no,
that's really good.
that's definitely it. And it's a blessing and I love it.
Well, Kyla, we definitely appreciate your time taking it out of the day with the circus you have going on. No, it's not
Oh,
easy to carve out 30 minutes to talk to your friends all the time. We've had that conversation before.
Yeah.
they're with their dad. So if y'all want to keep talking to,
I was gonna say we need to give Reese a shout out. Reese, thanks for
Reese may
watching the
decide
kids.
he wants to be a podcast guest after this.
Yeah.
probably, yeah. He likes to do like 7 p.m. He'll, in the evening, bedtime.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you for joining us today, Kyla.
Thanks for having us. Good luck with your garden. Good luck with your
Yes.
seeds. And I hope to see y'all in real life very soon.
Yes, and I'm sure we'll have you back on for all these other little minute topics that we touched on, future
Yes,
topics for our podcast.
the cow milking episode.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, that's a definite.
All right. Thank
Okay,
y'all so
thank
much.
you. Bye.
All right, that was Kyla McCoy. I mean Gable. Sorry, throwback to the K-Tex days.
Yes.
Um, First off, thank you very much, first guest on the show.
Right.
A lot of good information there. I'm gonna use some of that myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I did find one thing really hilarious throughout her interview, and that is me and her would not do a garden very well together because I am super
Into
serious
planning it.
planning it with the watering and everything, and but she does. I've known her a long time, friends with her older brother, and
Yeah.
between her Nana's garden and
Mm-hmm.
she's gotten great
Yeah.
stuff out of there. So a lot of good tips there. I
Yeah.
took down some notes myself for ours going forward. I suggest you do the same.
Yes.
That's pretty much going to wrap up this garden episode. It's spring break. Literally, when we finish here, we're going to start loading up and
Start loading up, finish loading up,
yeah,
hopefully.
well, yeah, probably more loading than we think's left. But
Yeah.
we're heading out. We're going to go to Arkansas, take the boys camping out Daisy State Park. Hope all of you guys have something going on, even if you're just still working. Hope you have like at least a little something. We're springing forward. You know, you got a little extra sunlight now.
Good weather for a couple of days here at least.
Yeah,
before it
hopefully. I
rains.
think, yeah,
Mhm.
maybe. Can't ever tell. No matter what they say, you don't know.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be live on remote. Just kidding. We're gonna be in Arkansas all week. We will be back and do another episode. And I think Darcy's got some stuff going on the Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping we can do a little Q&A if there's enough interest. We'll
That
see.
is-
I have not even have I told you that I wanted to do that? But
yeah,
anyways.
you told me. I don't even know what that means, but sure.
Okay, yeah. So hopefully we'll do a little road trip Q&A because we've got about at least a 7-hour drive.
Yeah,
there.
and that gave us our idea for what are we going to do next week. So
Yeah.
we're going to do, and this will be fun.
Mhm.
So little short backstory leading into it. We're going to do it about kind of camping / vacation, and for us specifically,
We grew up very differently.
yes, in this aspect, completely. And so we have a camper trailer, and we're going to kind of talk about the pros of that, how we got into it. We do
Yeah.
come from different backgrounds on it, but I know a lot of people, this kind of became all the rage again, I feel like, since COVID happened.
Yeah.
Like the popularity went skyrocketing.
Definitely.
And so there's a lot of people out there that maybe have just gotten into this, like myself, or have had a lot of interest in wondering about it.
Yeah.
So we're going to give you a lot of answers to any of those questions you might have, and just some fun little stories
At least
about
from
it.
our perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the majority of our trips so far with our little family have just been down the road to Somerville, but it's great.
Yeah, but even those, I mean, that
Oh,
still
yeah.
counts.
Oh yeah, no, it does. But we have at this point taken a couple of longer ones. So
Yeah, about to literally leave out tomorrow on one. So,
yeah,
anyways, that's the little tease for next week. We're going to go over camping vacation, why that's important. That was something I had to learn, and kind of
Yeah.
how it allows you to reset.
Mhm.
And it's especially nice to do one as we go into, I think, our 5th week of Lent, somewhere in there. But
yes.
so, anyway, stay tuned for that. We'll have some stuff on the Instagram. Appreciate Kyla once again for coming on, taking time out of her day for that. And now that we have unpacked the world, you go discuss.